Futurama's strong emotional core is a huge selling point for the series, and fans often either point to Fry's family or Fry and Leela's will-they-won't-they relationship when breaking down the most emotional aspects of the show. But one major emotional through line of the series that gets overlooked is the subject of Leela's origins and her big parental reveal. While the focus on Fry's family might hit you with harder emotional gut punches, I don't think there was any more satisfying overarching story in Futurama than Leela's. So let's break down exactly why this was one of the most masterful reveals in cartoon history. But before we do that,
Futurama is brought to you by
Surfshark.
the
VPN.
with a funny name.
That's right, y'all. This is my first ever sponsorship, and let me tell you, I am so excited to be partnering with Surfshark because this is a service that I actually use. Isn't that ironic?
It's not ironic, it's just coincidental.
I'm serious though, there are so many reasons to secure your internet using a VPN, but let's be honest, you're here because you love cartoons, so let's jump into why you, as a cartoon lover, can benefit so much from using Surfshark. So here's the deal. Did you know that different streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus have different libraries in different countries? Well, guess what? Jump yourself onto Surfshark, connect through another country, and bam! Those streaming libraries will change their contents depending on what country you set it to. You've been dying to watch Close Enough but can't afford HBO Max?
Good news, everyone!
Australian Netflix has you covered. And it's really easy too. Connect through Australia and bam! Close Enough is right there. And that's not all. Rick and Morty, Final Space, Archer, even SpongeBob SquarePants, the legend himself. And here's the deal. I've got a special offer code for you that will get you 83% off and 3 extra months on top of that for free. Just go to the link in the description of this video and enter the promo code Cellos to get this awesome offer. I use Surfshark to secure my digital life, protect myself from those pesky targeted ads, and watch those sweet, sweet cartoons and other countries' streaming services. Plus, guys, this is my first sponsorship ever, so please don't embarrass me. Click the link.
Let's go already!
Okay, back to the lovely Turanga Leela. One thing that Futurama nailed was establishing Leela's emotional isolation early on in the series. In fact, it's kind of the crux of the very first episode, Space Pilot 3000. As Fry laments the fact that he's all alone in a world that he doesn't understand, Leela relates to him and reveals that she herself is the only one-eyed alien on Earth, and she doesn't know where she's from.
My parents abandoned me here as a baby, and I don't even know what galaxy they were from.
This was not only a great moment for Fry and Leela to relate to each other and plant the seeds for their eventual romance, but it brought Leela's character back down to earth with an emotional hook, after she had sort of been the antagonist the entire first episode. The show would follow this up in the season 2 episode Xmas Story, which re-establishes the fact that Leela doesn't have a family or loved ones outside of Planet Express. Fry makes it worse, being his oftentimes inconsiderate self, but he realizes his mistake.
Here I am whining like a pig, while all along Leela was as lonely as a frog.
And while in this episode, this is mostly used as another way for Fry and Leela to bond over their mutual loneliness, it still firmly establishes how difficult Leela's life has been. The important distinction between Fry and Leela's brand of lonely is that Fry grew up with a life and family and lost it when he came to the future. Leela grew up in an orphanarium and was never adopted. She never had a family or a real childhood of any kind. We see that even through high school she was alone, not having her own prom date. And while this made Leela the hardened, self-sufficient badass we know and love, it still left a major hole in her heart. And honestly, is anything in Futurama sadder than this?
Only drowning puppies, and there would have to be a lot of them.
Okay, they actually got pretty close to that, didn't they? In Season 3's The Cyberhouse Rules, we further see how Leela's lonely upbringing affected her self-esteem and decision-making. This episode establishes some even sadder truths about Leela's life at the orphanarium. Being an orphan was obviously hard, but in addition to this, Leela was chastised and isolated for having only one eye.
One eye! Nice depth perception, One Eye!
This episode really hones in on everything that made Leela's life so difficult. She had no family, no loved ones, no stable upbringing, and didn't even have childhood friends to fall back on because her fellow orphans relentlessly bullied her. This didn't even stop when they were adults.
That's so good for a person with one eye.
These insecurities showed up fully when Leela started dating one of the orphans she grew up with, Adelaide Atkinson, who gives her cosmetic surgery to give her a second eye. Leela had a crush on Adelaide at the orphanarium, so her cosmetic surgery alongside her new relationship essentially plays out like a childhood fantasy of hers. They get pretty serious pretty fast and decide to adopt a kid together. Leela wants to adopt a little girl who has a third ear on her forehead, an obvious reminder of her own sad childhood at the orphanarium. Leela doesn't want to let this poor girl grow up isolated and without parents the way she did.
Come on, Adelaide. She could really use a mom and dad.
We know that when she says this, Leela is kind of talking about herself, but this also reveals the reality of her relationship with Adelaide and her own realization that she was in fact living out a fantasy, despite being great the way she was.
Well, I suppose you were fine the way you were.
Damn right I was.
It's a nice end to the episode, but ultimately, it really highlights the way Leela's upbringing in the orphanarium dictated her fears and insecurities. One of the smartest things Futurama did when setting up the reveal of Leela's origins is consistently point us in the wrong direction. From the very first episode, Leela was always called an alien, which is obviously because she herself thought she was an alien. In Season 2's A Bi-Cyclops Built for Two, they seemingly reveal the reality behind Leela's alien origins when she meets another Cyclops named Alcazar on the internet. He tells her that their planet was destroyed by a planet of mole people, and that she was the only baby sent away from the doomed planet. He himself survived another way. By the end of the episode, we learn that Alcazar was a shapeshifter and a con man who was tricking various species into marrying him the same way he tricked Leela, but we learn a lot about Leela's desire for belonging in this episode. The way that Alcazar manipulated Leela showcases how desperately Leela sought answers about her past.
We are the last remaining Cyclopses. Our planet is Cyclopia. This is the capital, Cyclops City. Stop me if I'm going too fast for you.
And how willing she was to accept the answers she was given.
So much information. And yet somehow, I feel as if I know it all already.
Once Alcazar slept with Leela, he changed his tune entirely and made Leela do all of the housework while he lounged around. And even though Leela realized this and realized that he was a jackass, she couldn't stop herself from marrying him. Her desire for some sort of connection to her past, for answers to her life's mysteries, and her hope to leave a legacy that represents that past overrode her better judgment. She felt a duty to continue the Cyclops race. Fortunately, the shapeshifter reveal came through and Alcazar got what was coming to him.
If you could change form, why didn't you change it in the one place that counts?
And this continuous misdirection from the series is what ultimately made the actual reveal of Leela's origins so damn satisfying. In Leela's homeworld, we finally learn the truth, that Leela's parents weren't aliens at all. They were actually mutants who lived in the sewer all along. Now, some might claim this is a retcon given that we thought she was an alien the whole series, but I'll point you back to the very first episode of Season 2, I Second That Emotion, when we got our first real exploration of the sewers and the society of mutants that live beneath. Here in this shot, you can actually see Leela's parents among the crowd. This was 2 full seasons before they did the final reveal, and only 14 episodes into the series run. This was something the writing staff had in their back pocket for a long time. But Leela's true heritage isn't the only thing that makes this reveal great. It's so much more. The reason Leela's parents abandoned her was noble, and for her own good. Leela was shown to be the least mutated mutant ever born in the sewers.
And yet, she's cursed to live the horrible, degrading life of a mutant.
With mutants being second-class citizens, Leela's parents knew that she could pass as human on the surface, and left her at the orphanarium with a note in an alien language, to further convince them that she was of alien origin. This makes Leela's story not only heartbreaking for Leela herself, but for her parents as well. They had to make the hardest decision a parent could possibly make for the good of their daughter. But the real heart-wrenching moment is when you realize that they were there for Leela all along. In a beautiful montage, we see the ways big and small that Leela's parents stealthily watched over their daughter, keeping her safe, giving her birthday gifts, tucking her in. This is, without question, one of the most effective emotional moments in the entire series, which is saying a lot for a show that excels at these types of emotional moments. It's really beautiful. But one of the things I loved about Leela's relationship with her parents is that the series didn't just drop the storyline after the long-awaited reveal. They actually followed it up with really smart and focused stories about Leela's newfound relationship to the parents she never knew, and they all touched on her lack of a real childhood. In particular, Teenage Mutant Leela's hurdles gave Leela a second chance at growing up in a loving home. In this episode, everyone on the crew is accidentally de-aged in a spa accident. Given this new opportunity, Leela decides she wants to remain a teenager and live with her parents in the sewers. This is obviously a tough adjustment for everyone involved.
Bring beer.
No beer till you finish your tequila.
In the end, Leela gave up her chance at another childhood to help her friends, but Leela was willing to abandon everything she knew for one more shot at a genuine childhood. She really wanted to know her parents and grow up with them. Even episodes in the revival season, like Zap Dingbat, forced Leela through something a lot of kids deal with, a parental divorce. And as expected, Leela did not handle it well, especially given that her mother started dating Zap Brannigan. And while the separation didn't stick, it was nice that the show wanted to put Leela through some of these familial motions and give her some semblance of a childhood even in her 30s. Another great episode that really shows Leela fight for her parents is The Mutants Are Revolting, the series' 100th episode. When Fry accidentally outs Leela as a mutant, she's banished to the sewers and then subsequently stands up for mutant rights, hoping to allow them to live and exist on the surface. Now admittedly, the mutants being second-class citizens kinda was a big elephant in the room of Futurama, and it kinda bums me out that Leela didn't do anything about this until it was affecting her directly, but I still like seeing Leela get more in touch with her heritage and help give her parents a better life. We even even meet Leela's grandmother in this episode. In the end, the through line of Leela's heritage and ultimate parental reveal will always go down for me as one of the most satisfying and masterful in cartoon history. This wasn't played in any sort of emotionally manipulative way. What makes it work is the fact that we are emotionally invested in Leela and the insecurities and struggles she's gone through because of her upbringing. The way the show brings this to the forefront and gave us great stories centered around it made us truly care about the answer, and when the answer came, it didn't disappoint. Could you imagine if the reveal really was something like we saw in A Bicyclops Built for Two? Basically a Superman ripoff from a doomed Cyclops planet? Sure, it's sci-fi, but it isn't emotionally engaging. It's just an answer to a question. The mutant reveal fit the universe we knew and loved, and it really delivered in connecting back to Leela as a character. It was surprising while also making sense within the lore, and it gave us one of the most emotional sequences in the entire show. Fans understandably love to focus on emotional moments like Fry learning about his nephew, or seeing his mother again in her dream, or the devastating end of Jurassic Park. But the truth is that as great as those moments are, they're all almost entirely rooted in the episode that delivered them. Leela meeting her parents was a long-standing mystery that we were emotionally invested in, and they truly nailed it. And folks, that's where I want to pass it off to you. All these years later, does the reveal of Leela's origins still work? Where does it rank for emotional Futurama moments for you? Let me know below in the comments. And if you like this video, you should definitely stay tuned because I really have so much more to talk about when it comes to Futurama. Peace.
Johnny to Cellos.